Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel, I'm sharing our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Today, I am continuing my kind of series on things that I like to do to improve my immune system, kind of sharing with you the various ways that I have figured out over the years, more in kind of a tutorial how-to sort of way. Not too long ago, I did a video, I'll link that one here, and that was about like the 10 different things that I like to do to heal when I'm feeling bad, or just things that I like to do to stay healthy. And so I did one video that last time that was on making liposomal vitamin C. I will also link that video here. And now I'm gonna kind of go over with you kind of the goodness of fermented foods and the benefits, and just kind of going over how I like to make sauerkraut. I have made a video on sauerkraut. I made that a while back now, and I needed to make some sauerkraut, and I figured this was the good time as any to kind of go over with you the ways that I make sauerkraut, I guess. It's not going to be a super in-depth one. I mean, it's sauerkraut. It doesn't take a whole lot to actually do. So, but I have kind of changed the way that I like to do it a little bit, and I do shred it a little bit finer than I used to, but I mean, for the most part, other than that, it's exactly the same. So, I mean, not a whole lot's changed there, but I just wanted to have a little chit chat and talk to you about just some of the things that I like to do when I'm just trying to heal my immune system. With everything that's going on, I think now is as good a time as any to make sure that our immune systems are in good, strong order. And fermented foods, I have found through both self-experimentation, research, reading, just all sorts of different things, is a really, really important way and a really good thing that you can do to help boost your immune system. And the reason for that is that, you know, roughly about like, depending on the number, depending on who you talk to, anywhere between like 70 and 90% of your immune system is actually in your gut. It's in your digestive tract, in the bacteria that is in there. And, you know, this modern world that we live in makes it really hard to have a healthy immune system with all the electromagnetic things and the odd daylight hours, and you know, all of the hand sanitizers and the antibacterial soaps and all of that sort of thing makes it really hard for the bacteria to thrive and survive and do well in your gut. So I like to make sure that I go through, well, number one, I don't use antibacterial hand soap. I just use regular soap and wash it very well. Wash my hands very well, and that's plenty for me. But that's your own personal choice. But, so I like to make sure that I am supplementing the gut bacteria with more gut bacteria. And I like to get these through naturally fermented foods because it's the highest dose. Depending on how long you let it go for, depending on the starting content of the cultures and things like that, you know, there's a lot of variables that go into it. But overall, home fermented sauerkraut, home fermented vegetables, fruits, all those sorts of things are gonna have a much higher content versus most of your typical probiotic supplements and things like that. And from the numbers that I've seen, it's a really big difference. Like, it's a huge amount more. So I mean, really just taking the time and spending the time that you need to ferment this stuff is going to save you a tremendous amount of money. For anybody who's gone out and tried to look up any fermented food, not fermented, but any probiotic supplements, they're insanely expensive. I mean, you're looking at probably anywhere between, for a decent one, you're looking at between like $30 and $100 a month just for one person for your base dosage. And when you can get all of that just from fermented foods, especially if you do a variety of fermented foods. I'm not talking about just sauerkraut. I mean, you have water kefir, milk kefir, there's kombucha, there's you know, fermented grains like sauerkraut, and you can even ferment your oatmeal if you want to, if you eat that. And there's just almost a innumerable amount of ways that you can get fermented foods in your life. Oh no. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get the outer leaves off of it so that I can set it aside and use it to top off my ferment. I'm going to be fermenting these in the big half-gallon jars, so I don't need a lot of these. I'm just going to pick through, cut up the best ones, and shape the best ones for my purposes, and then probably cut up the rest and add it back to this. So, but anyways, fermented foods. And the reasons that you want to have fermented foods in your life is just, well, everything about it. I mean, it just makes everything better. Well, one of the things that the bacteria does with the this, pretty much all the vegetables, all the fruits, all the everything, is its main source of fuel is the sugar that is in the ferment. Like in kombucha, like you use just the white sugar, and at the end of it, if you ferment it for long enough, there's no sugar left in it because the SCOBY has consumed it all. It's the same thing with almost all bacteria. It needs a food source, and almost always that particular food source is sugar. And so when you ferment foods, you can have the sugar in there. Well, you can start with the sugar rather, and if you're fermenting it, then almost all of that sugar is eaten away, and it turns it into lactic acid, whatever, maybe it just turns it into an acidic thing, and that is something that your body can thrive on much better than all the high sugar. And then it also will break down the foods that you are fermenting. It will break down I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm not 100% sure on this, but it breaks down and pre-digests a lot of the fibers and things in the fermented foods. You'll have to forgive me, it's been a long time since I've done a tremendous amount of research on fermenting and bacteria. I've read so many books, I can't even begin to tell you how many books I've read on the subject. And I have a tremendous number of these fermenting recipe books and things like that. And I'm gonna start at some point going through those recipes and those books and sharing with you a bunch of those recipes, but that's for another time. Train of thought, come on. Okay, so it converts the sugar into, I believe, into the lactic acid, and it just creates all of these different types of bacteria, like just an incredible amount of bacteria that your body really does need to be able to maintain your moods, maintain your calm. Oftentimes, I've read that if you're a very easily startled, jumpy person in general, not just in a few circumstances, but just in general, like any move that somebody makes is just gonna just scare the snot out of you. There's a pretty good chance you have a gut microbiome imbalance, because yeah, it's just some of the things that bacteria in your gut microbiome are capable of will just blow your mind. It's just incredible. Like, you know how like all of the old sayings, like you have a gut feeling or something's just not right and you can just feel it in your gut and all those sorts of things. It is actually the memory of the bacteria that is within you that goes back 4 generations. If you're a female, it goes back 4 generations. And you can be affected by something that happened to like your great-great-grandmother. It's insane. And that bacteria just keeps repopulating through the generations, and it can retain that memory of, something is bad or something is good. And, like your gut bacteria just knows it and it tells you, and that's why you have instincts and all those sorts of things. And that's why female instincts are stronger than male instincts, is because of the bacteria. How incredible is that? So anyways, as you can see, I'm very passionate about this particular topic. So there is one thing I'm realizing that is different from when I made my sauerkraut in the past video that I've made for you guys. And that is the cores. I used to cut up the cores into very teeny tiny itty bitty little pieces just to make sure that, it wasn't too crunchy or too off-putting of a texture. And I would cut it up into little teeny tiny little pieces and put it into the ferment. And I used to do that because I was under the impression, the belief, or I'd been told that the core of these vegetables had the most digestive benefits to it. And basically what I gather is that is via prebiotics. I don't know if that's 100% certain, but I have come to the conclusion through my own self-experimentation that prebiotic fiber and me, we don't get along very well. So I have stopped adding that to my ferments, at least for the time being, while I'm just in this period of healing, however long it lasts, which has been forever. But that aside, I stopped doing that. So I wanted to make sure that I inserted that here and let you know, if you do have issues with digestion or things like that, try omitting fiber for a while. It might help you like it helped me. And now, I still consume fiber, I still consume fermented foods, but that is one of the benefits of fermenting the foods, is that it breaks down the fiber. It breaks down a lot of the bad stuff that's in there. I can't remember exactly. I want to say it breaks down phytates, but I'm not sure. I know it doesn't do anything with oxalates, at least not to my knowledge. You know, there's various things that it helps with and various things that it doesn't do anything for. So there's that. Okay. It's just a little full, so I want to stir it up before I add the rest. So yeah, all I'm doing is, I know a lot of people like to beat it and pound it and just squeeze and whatever the stuffing out of this stuff. I just kind of stir in the salt, give it a little bit of a, you know, almost like you're lightly kneading bread kind of, and squeeze it and, you know, all that kind of stuff, just a bit for like a minute or two. I'm not gonna do that just yet, but I'm mixing the salt in before I chop up this last one. And another thing, I like to start at the tip, away from the core section. And I'll show you why I like to do that here in just a second. And I'm also chopping these up much more finely than I did in my previous time of doing it. I've found that I like it either way. And so this one here that I did before I turned on the camera is much thicker. This one's much thinner. The most important part in the size of your ferments is just that it is consistent throughout your individual ferment. You can do it whatever size you want for the most part, especially with vegetables. Fruits are a little more iffy, you have to be a little more cautious, but with vegetables, for the most part, you can do kind of whatever size you want. So I like to get to about this part of it, and then I turn it over like this and start cutting it at the other angle. And that basically prevents you getting big giant chunks of the ends and pieces. And you can just slice them up just as finely as the other ones, instead of having to hunt down all these big giant pieces. I've just found it helps. And then I turn it and do it again. Here we go. Okay, so I'm all done with this part here. I'm gonna add another tablespoon. It's a lot of salt, but it's a lot of sauerkraut. So like I said, I'm just kind of stirring it up basically and doing a little push on it, a little squeeze here and there for just a minute, maybe two. Nothing crazy. I'm not like beating it with a giant wooden mallet, any of that. I haven't found it necessary at all. And I like to have crunchier sauerkraut in the end, so if I don't do all of that craziness to it, then it retains some of its crunch. I'm just gonna taste it. Nailed it. Okay, so I'm gonna set this stuff aside. I'm gonna cover it up with a tea cloth, and I'm gonna eat dinner and then come back in like an hour, maybe a little bit more, and then all the salt that's in here and all over this stuff, and I've squished it, it's gonna pull out the liquid from the leaves, and then we'll be able to jar this up, and I'll show you the next step. So it's been a while, I don't even know how long it's actually been. And so now we're ready to actually take the sauerkraut and jar it up and just kind of let it be for later. So pretty much all I do with it is I just give it kind of one final little stir, and you can hear it. And you can see all the liquid that comes off of it. Just letting it be is enough for me. I'm not concerned about it beyond that. So all I'm gonna do is just put it in the jar. And so I think probably as time goes on, I'm going to be sharing a lot more information as far as fermentation and just the different facts and the figures and the just amazing things behind it. But you know, I kind of just wanted to share some stuff with you, some of the important reasons as to why I like to do it. And you know, it's the population of the gut microbiome, all the bacteria and everything that is inside of your gut is so indescribably important to who you are as a person, how healthy you are, the decisions you make, the moods that you're in, you know, how healthy you are. Just so, an innumerable amount of things are dictated based on the health of your gut microbiome. If you are, you know, doing things that will damage your gut microbiome, if you're taking, you know, pain medications, if you're drinking diet sodas, if you're drinking regular sodas even, you know, if you're consuming a lot of artificial sweeteners, if you're consuming a lot of sweeteners, you know, all of those sorts of things, pretty much all the different things and decisions, and particularly with regards to foods, but also like, you know, right down to if you have a smart meter in your house, or if you have fluoridated water, if you have chlorinated water. Everybody's gut microbiome, unless you're the boy in a bubble, you have bacteria in your gut. And it's just a matter of what proportion of good versus bad bacteria that you actually have in your gut. And there's two basic types of bacteria from what I'm gathering. There's Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. And the Bacteroidetes, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think those are the good ones, and then the Firmicutes are the bad ones. And I mean, they're not all bad and they're not all good. Like everybody's gut has like E. coli in it, and all different kinds of ones that are bad. You know, there's yeast in your guts, but when you have a yeast overgrowth, yeast infections, things like that, is when it gets overgrown that is the big issue. But I do what I can to make sure that I'm getting my body the best possible chance of getting a better ratio of good to bad bacteria. And one of the ways of doing that is feeding it a bunch of good bacteria. And just giving your body the things that it needs to fight, basically, is what I'm aiming for with all of this. And it's delicious. I've liked sauerkraut my entire life. I've liked pickles for my entire life. But it wasn't until I kind of started to discover and be interested in health that I actually even realized what sauerkraut or pickles even were. I just thought the vinegar stuff, you know? And so I'm very thankful that I enjoyed these things. Like my sister and I, my little sister and I, growing up, we would tear through, you know, dill pickles like they were going out of style. Anytime we would go over to visit my aunt and uncle, they would, or go over there for the summer, or, you know, for a week or whatever, however long we were over there for, they were awesome. They would go to the store and they would pick up pickles just for me and her. None of them liked it, as far as I'm aware, or they certainly didn't like it as much as we did, but they would go to the store just to pick up pickles for me and my sister because they knew we liked it so much. So I just thought that was really cool, just kind of looking back and realizing how far back my love of sour fermenting foods went, which is really far, forever. But yeah, so. so I'm definitely gonna need 3 of these jars. So I'm just gonna distribute them evenly. Because one mistake that I make often when I'm doing fermenting is that I fill the jars too full. Because I'm like, oh, I can cram it in here. I can make it. It's gonna be fine. And then I end up filling it up so much that when time passes and, you know, the moon cycles and all that kind of stuff, it creates the carbon dioxide inside and the bubbles, and then it causes it to come out. So I'm really trying to be good at not overfilling it. I suck at it. I still haven't really caught on, but I'm gonna try this time and attempt at least to not get these things filled up to the point that that happens. It's all weird brown piece. And now it's on my wrist. And most of the things that I'm talking about with regards to fermented foods is not simply applicable to sauerkraut. It's just the one that I'm making now. You know, a lot of other ferments, I have a whole playlist, I'll go ahead and link that here, that is all of my fermented foods that I've made, and there's so many more that are coming because it's the Fermented Homestead, you know. I try and make sure that a good healthy portion of my videos are fermenting videos and also homesteading and things like that. You know, I just got chickens and all kinds of gardening, and so many other things are happening on the homestead right now, so it's hard to just stick to fermenting videos because I'm just not all I'm doing. The Sally Fallon Morell, she wrote a cookbook, and it's, you know, it's a whole big thing, Nourishing Traditions. That one's awesome. I love that one. And I really like it because it just kind of opens my mind up to the different things that can be done. And oftentimes I'll typically take that and find something else that I want to do, because I know a lot of the recipes within the Nourishing Traditions cookbook call for a lot of starters, like whey and, you know, just using a starter to inoculate the next batch. I don't really like to do that because it changes the flavor of it. I like to let it ferment at kind of a cold room temperature is ideal for me for a long time. I have found, I've read somewhere that it changes the flavor of it, and I found that it does. When you add a starter culture and you inoculate it, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you have to, like with kefir or kombucha, things like that. You have to introduce the actual SCOBY, and you have to introduce the starter culture to it. Otherwise, it could go any which direction. But when you're doing a vegetable ferment, in particular, I don't like to use a starter culture. And the reason being is that it ferments much quicker, and so it moves through the various stages of fermenting. There are various stages of fermenting, kind of like when you're composting, like different temperatures of the compost bring forth different bacteria. And so when you're fermenting, different stages of the fermentation process bring different bacterias and different flavors, and they have different byproducts and things that come from it. And that is all done in its own time. That's why I like to do it without the starter culture. You can do it with the starter culture. I mean, especially if you're just getting into fermenting, you're not going to have as much of a preference for it. So you can try it and it'll be ready much, much quicker. But I like to let it go for a long time. Like this particular sauerkraut is going to be over there in the corner for, I want to say, at least a month. Guessing, but it's probably going to be a month, especially given the time of year it is. It's not very warm in this house. It's a freaking ice box in this house unless we have a fire going. So we got these all measured out. Portioned out, I guess. Okay, so I made such a big mess. This is just stupid. Okay, so one of the downsides of the way that I just set it and forget it with the salt ferment, whatever, is that it doesn't produce as much brine right up front, but it does in time. And so I think that is probably part of my problem that I have normally with fermenting and not filling it up as much, or filling it up too much and then it overflowing, which is why I don't want to fill it up too much this time. But one of the reasons that I like to fill it up more is because I like to have this little shoulder to hold everything in. And I'm not going to have that with this time around. So basically what I'm going to have to do is make much larger leaves. This one just happened to be a perfect shape, I think. So normally what I do is I just take like a lid, like the ring that would go around here, and I'll put it up on here and I'll just trace around it. But this time I'm gonna do it differently, and I'm gonna take the jar, put it on top, and trace it that way so that I will have a larger one, but it'll still be kind of, sort of, well, this is the top one here. I'm all over the map by now. Okay. So we're just gonna cut random pieces. How about that? So basically what I'm trying to do here is to get the leaf around the fermented food inside as much as I can, because this leaf is going to help hold in all of the little pieces under the brine, and you have to hold all the little pieces underneath the brine, because it's all those little floaters that's what's going to mold if you let it float. Basically the idea, I'm just putting a bunch of layers in here to try and catch as much of these things as I possibly can. So now I like to save the spine pieces and put those in last, because that's just got the rigidity to it, and it's going to be much easier to break. No, don't break. Don't break on me. Don't break on me. Okay. It's going to be much easier with the spine to hold the top layer in. It's just something I picked up over the years that I really like to do. You don't have to. So I have these pickle pipes and pickle pucks that I like to use. You don't have to at all. So there we go. There we go. I'll get the ring later. So now we're just on to the next one, and that's all there is to it. I'm gonna monitor this to make sure you can kind of see here the brine hasn't quite come up all the way above, but if I push it down, it does. So we're gonna monitor this, and I'm gonna check on this pretty much after the first couple of days. I'm gonna check on it daily for a few days. Once it starts to really get active and gets going, I'm gonna check on it every day to make sure that there's no floaters that have come up that are gonna start to mold, because that's what's gonna ruin it. I need to make sure that nothing is above the brine except the rock that's in there. Well, not the rock, but you know what I mean, the glass weight. So I'm gonna do the same thing that I did with this one, with these two, and that's all there is to it. I'm just gonna set it, I'm gonna leave it and check on it for a while. And if you want to have any more of a detailed instruction as to how I make this, for the most part, go ahead and check out my other video that I have on fermenting sauerkraut, and any one of my other fermenting videos. They're going to have a lot of information in there as well. Like I said, I'm going to link my fermenting playlist that you can check out, and I've just kind of over time tried to share as much information as I possibly can, because as you know, I have such a passion for it. It's something that I'm so interested in. I'm intrigued by it, and I just find it to be wonderful, both for health, for taste, for I just think it's awesome stuff. So I like to share it with you guys, share it with those who are interested in it, share it with the other people who are passionate about it, those who are just trying to learn from it. So I really appreciate you guys watching, having an open mind, and trying to learn about different ways that we can help to improve our immune system, and just all of the things that go along with that. So if you have any other ideas or tips or things that you like to do to improve your immune system, or different fermentation ideas, or anything that you might have, please leave it in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you, and I'm sure that other people would love to read your comments as well. And so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Be sure to check out all the video links below, and also in the cards up above, wherever they may be. Lots of information in there, and we'll just see you next time for the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.